This weekend, Formula One will be returning to Spain. What Fernando Alonso himself once described as a country without a history in Formula One has slowly emerged to become one of the European backbones of the sport. Thanks to Alonso, and of course Carlos Sainz as well, we not only have a race in Spain, but also a huge Formula One fan base. Yet the Spanish Grand Prix isn't very popular at all. And that is down to the circuit that F1 is using to race there. In my opinion, it is even only down to that horrible chicane in the last sector. And if you're wondering how that little bit of tarmac can ruin an entire racetrack, well, I really like to drive this track, apart from that one chicane I mentioned. It isn't very good for racing, and in my opinion the chicane just ahead of the pit straight is the reason for that. It makes it very hard for cars to follow each other, and that right ahead of the part of the track that is best for overtaking. So while running on the main straight, more often than not, at the time where you just caught up, the opportunity for an overtake is already gone. Last year's race, of course, was a little bit better, probably thanks to the new regulations. If that was just a one-off, remains to be seen though. Apart from Barcelona, there still are other tracks in Spain. Lots of them actually even holding the FIA Grade 1. And one of these was used in Formula 1 before, and some fans even have called for this one to host the Spanish Grand Prix in the future, and to be fair, it has seen lots of iconic moments. The talk is of course about the Circuit de Jerez. This track is most famously known for the 1997 title decider when in qualifying 3 drivers, including the 2 championship rivals Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher, set the same time, and where Schumacher later crashed into Villeneuve on purpose, hoping to take both of them out so he'd win the championship by a single point. That didn't work, and he later was disqualified from the entire championship. But it also saw one of the closest F1 finishes ever, with Ayrton Senna coming over the line side by side with Nigel Mansell, only separated by 14 thousandths of a second in 1986. Of course, that is all way back in the past, and F1 hasn't raced here since that famous 1997 race, but it was still used for testing, and it actually still has an FIA Grade 1, and in its state would be ready to host Formula 1 races. And this is what a lap around this track would look like in a modern Formula 1 car. My first impressions are pretty good, to be honest. I don't think it's the greatest track I've ever driven, but it has some really nice flow and interesting sweepers going for it. However, it might share some issues with Barcelona, mainly the overtaking issue. While on this track there is not a horrible chicane that ruins an otherwise good track ahead of a prime overtaking spot, here it feels like there is no such very good spot at all. The Dani Pedrosa hairpin at the end of the circuit's longest straight might work with DRS though. The final corner has not enough straight ahead of it to make it a proper overtaking spot, and the pit straight and turn 1 could work if you have a rocket ship of a car. But if you know this series, you'll know that we'll test exactly that in a short 5-lap race on this track. And here we are on the grid in P6 as Carlos Sainz in his 2022 Ferrari, and it's lights out and away we go here in Jerez, and we get a good start. We are already past that first Mercedes, now around the outside of Lando Norris. Well, that first bit of the track is a bit slow, technical, clumsy. Especially in the first lap. It gets better in the following laps, and now this is where the proper and great flow of that track begins. Now through that very fast right-hander on towards the track's longest straight that leads into the Dani Pedrosa hairpin. I've talked about that earlier. This is where Schumacher and Villeneuve crashed into each other in 1997. And we've already lost a lot of time to the cars ahead. And yeah, you can already see lots of flowing and kind of faster corners here at Jerez. Now we come to a chicane that is not as bad as the one in Barcelona. This was introduced in 1994 when lots of tracks got these kind of weird chicanes into faster bits of the track after, of course, what happened in 1994. And yeah, this has already been the first lap here. We've called back up to the back of that Mercedes ahead of us. And now let's see if we can find a way past that car. We can go quicker, obviously. And now, as I've told you earlier, this here, after this corner, this will be the circuit's best overtaking spot. A flowing corner has been better to follow cars with these new ground effect regulations. Maybe we are able to do a move. I think we would have been able, but we weren't, well, brave enough on the brakes there. A little too early. So no chance of making it past. Now there's already kind of a gap. In this part of the track, I don't think overtaking will be possible. Still a very enjoyable part here. Bit more technical than the rest of the track. Now, again, through that chicane. It's one of the better chicanes that has been introduced in 1994 and afterwards. As this is not too bad. Would be better without, but that's how the track is. This is the track that has the Grade 1 rating, so this is why we're using this version of it. And now we're getting closer to George Russell ahead of us again. And now let's see if we can be a bit more brave on the brakes as we almost lose the car here. This is really, you really need to be careful when applying the throttle through that bit there, which should be turn 3. As you could go flat out through there. As we're trying now the dive bomb against Russell, releasing the brake there even, and we make it past. But now Russell with the counterattack through that fast left-hander there, and he manages to stay ahead. So a pretty nice battle we're having here with George. So this was actually very good. Now around the outside here, ooh, running a little wide. And yeah, this is some great battle we're having with Russell. I'm a bit surprised that this actually works so well, even without having DRS here. As, well, the track, as it is not an official Formula 1 track, does not have any DRS zone in Automobilista 2. But now, we're here on the slipstream on the start-finish straight, and you were able to see that you just don't get close enough. But now maybe with a surprise attack into turn 2. I don't know why Russell was so slow through there. I don't think this would usually work, but as Russell was very slow there, we made it past. I didn't expect that. I was waiting to try it once again on that long straight here. It's so satisfying, that very long right-hander that we're going through, and then that releases us onto that long straight. And let's see if we can catch up to Leclerc ahead of us, who's running in second. But for now, let's just enjoy the racing here on this track, which has a really nice flow to it. As I said, it's not the greatest one. It doesn't even feel so special, but just... Oh, what happened there? There was a tire lying around, so there must have been quite a heavy crash in that chicane there. This one named after Ayrton Senna, that chicane. Like so many corners around the world. As we're starting lap 5 already. So the final lap of this race. And we are still trying to catch up to our teammate. Don't think we will be able to attack him this lap. And that corner even goes a bit uphill, which is so satisfying. And that heavy braking into that hairpin. Now after racing it here, I think this might... Actually, it might work. Jerez might work with modern Formula 1 cars. And I think it might even be better than Barcelona. But we will talk about that in the conclusion after this race here. As we are already in the final sector. Through that chicane. Oh, even more tires. On the right now as well. As we almost lose the car out of there. Also, you need to be careful applying the throttle through there. And round the final corner we go. And that has been a 5-lap race here in Jerez. And we had a surprisingly good battle with George Russell. And I've said it before, I think Jerez might be worth a try for modern Formula 1. If you get DRS on that straight after turn 5 and into the Dani Pedrosa hairpin, I think racing and overtaking might be possible, maybe even more so than in Barcelona. The elevation change, of course, is not as exciting as Barcelona. I think if we just remove that chicane and have the two very fast right-hand corners at the end of the lap, I'd still think Barcelona would be better than Jerez. But if we have to use the chicane in Barcelona, I think we could try Jerez, because this track is actually pretty good. And that has been it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did so. Subscribe to not miss anything else happening on this channel. And I hope to see you all the next time. Until then, goodbye.